So this is Addendum A. This is going to come from Horn & Associates. For those of you who are members at creativecashflow.com, you can go to the resources section and download a copy of this. Otherwise, if you're watching this through another vehicle, you can contact Horn & Associates directly to get your contracting done for you, and that's where you can get this addendum. But now I'm showing you how you can actually go through the addendum and explain everything in a way that makes sense to people. So this is the addendum. This is the part that actually deals with the subject to side of things and with the owner financing side of things. So again, like I talked about before, I'm going to go through and I'm going to point out the high points. If you want to read anything, if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to stop me and ask, okay? So right here, this does talk about that I have the right to assign the contract, like we talked about earlier. A lot of times what I'll use that for is I may be contracting under one of my company names, but in order for just proper asset protection and making sure that I don't have too many houses in one company so that everybody is kind of insulated from each other, I might move this over into another company. So even though you see this company name up here, we may actually be closing into another company name. Similarly, I would have the right to assign this to another investor. If another investor wants to come in here and take my spot on the contract, I promise you I'll make sure that it's going to be somebody that I trust to do that. But that's what allows us to do that side. This also talks about the 60-day option. Now, you and I have talked about this multiple times, but again, like I said, there's going to be a lot of repetition in this contract because we really want to make sure that you're understanding everything. So we've got a 60-day option period in here to go find out somebody to buy this property from us. And then at the end of that, we do have the option to extend for 30 days, but here's the thing, is that extension is only going to happen if both you and I agree to it. So if we get to the end of the 60 days, the ball seems to be rolling, you're good with how things are going, I'm good with how things are going, we'll sign another paper that says, yes, we're going to extend for another 30 days, but I've never had to do that before. I can usually get these things closed up pretty quickly. Now down here, we do want to point out, again, we're buying this property subject to, which means we're leaving your underlying lien in place as is. I'm just going to continue to make that, that loan's payments on your behalf, which also goes to point out that this loan isn't assumable. The loan that you have with Big Bank A, you know, the loan that you have with whoever, that's not an assumable loan. Assumable would mean that I was going in there, sitting down, giving them all my finances, they would take you off and put me on. That's not what's happening here. I'm buying the house from you, and I'm going to continue making those payments on your behalf. It's going to have your name on the mortgage there. We're doing that without the underlying lender's consent. In other words, I'm not sending them a letter. I'm not going in and asking them permission to do this. We're just going to go ahead and keep paying on your behalf. And then there is a due on sale clause. And you and I have already talked about the due on sale clause here, but again, just to reiterate, it's not something that I'm particularly concerned about. I don't see it happen in the real world because we are going to be making those payments on time and in a timely fashion. And again, what does the bank want at the end of the day? They want their money, right? They want their payments. Now, investors, watch my due on sale clause series so that you can see the script that you should be telling people about due on sale clause, and I do encourage you to tell them about the due on sale clause right before you get into the contracting stage. Make sure that all their questions have been answered, they're ready to move forward, they're very comfortable with the transaction. Bring up the due on sale clause, make sure that they understand what the due on sale clause is, and then move forward with the contracting. Right here, we're outlining that this is an investment property for me. You know, I am doing this because this is what puts food on my table. This is how I feed my family. You know, this is my business. So I'm going to turn around. I will be making a profit on this property. And that even though I'm a licensed mortgage broker and I'm partners with an attorney, you know, neither one of us are representing you in this transaction, right? This is just me buying the property from you as an investment. Now, if you're a licensed agent, you would bring in licensed agent. If you're not licensed at all and this doesn't really apply to you, you don't need to make this a high point. But a lot of you guys are going to be licensed in some form or fashion, so go ahead and point that out to them. Once we have this contract signed, I'm going to start marketing the property for sale. So that means I'm going to be listing the property. I might put it up on MLS. I'm going to put a lockbox on the front door that'll hold a key. Now, I will give you plenty of warning, and most of my sellers want like an hour, maybe 2 hours of warning if we're going to be doing a showing so that they can tell, you know, hey, I need to get out of the way, or I want to clean this up, or just kind of get ready for it. It's totally fine if you're here. A lot of sellers choose to, you know, grab a cup of coffee or something for the moment while we're coming in there. But we will have a lockbox on there, but I won't walk into the house without ever letting you know and getting your permission to do that. If you're not, speaking to the investor now, if they are not living in the property, if they are, then maybe this is a rental property or something like that, or they've already moved, this part is much easier because you're just going to say, we're going to put a lockbox and show the property and get it sold that way. But if they're living in the residence, you need to be aware of that and give them the opportunity to understand that you're not going to encroach on their privacy. You just need the ability to get in there in case they're not home and you've got a showing and you've given them fair warning that you can give in, or get in and give that tour. So that's what we talk about here. We're going to give reasonable notice to you. And I'm also probably going to be placing a sign in your front yard that says it's for sale, and it'll have my phone number on that so that people can call us about the purchase of this property. Now this part right here, this is what actually talks about the numbers that we've been going over. Okay, this is all of everything that's actually outlining the real numbers of what's going on. Now, one thing that I want to point out here is on this very next section, we have these top two items X'd off. What this says is that if the contract price, if the price that's on this piece of paper is less than the loan amount that you have to your bank, the loan amount shall govern. So in other words, if I put $100,000 on here and then we go to closing and your statement comes back and it turns out you actually owe $100,000 and $700, I'm buying the house for $100,700, even though this just says 100 on it. Similarly, the next one says if the contract price is greater. So if the price on this paper is greater than the loan amount, then the loan amount shall govern. So if I put $100,000 on here, but your loan is for $99,000, when we go to the closing, it's for $99,867, I'm buying the house for $99,687, okay? So these are guidelines that we're going off of. This is something so that we have an agreement in place right now, even though we understand that the numbers might be not 100% entirely accurate at the moment. This is proof of me showing, hey, I understood what I was getting into. Now, investor, this right here is the golden ticket, because one of the things that's going to give people an excuse to try to push contracting off to another day is they might be like, I just don't know exactly what I owe, or I don't know how far behind I am, or blah, 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 I don't know the exact numbers. And you can just reassure them, that's okay, I don't need exact numbers, I need generalizations right now. If you feel like you owe $100,000, we're gonna put $100,000 on here. And then you just point out to them, and you can do this early on in the contracting, early on in the negotiation, pointing out, all I need is I've got these two check marks here that say if your loan amount is bigger than or less than the amount that I have on our contract, we're going off the loan amount, and that will help ease their concerns about that. And then what you're going to do is later on in here we've got powers of attorney, we've got authorization to release information from the bank, so you're going to turn that into the bank and you're going to get the real accurate numbers from the bank directly. Okay, so we don't need the absolute 100% accurate numbers when we're signing the contract, but we do need something in paper, in writing, that shows that we understood kind of what we were getting after here. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to go straight down the line. Our contract price is for $100,000. I'm not giving you a down payment or anything. What I'm doing is I'm going to be catching up that loan for you. And then we have our lien numbers right here. So our first lien, the current loan balance is blank, 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 blank. And just go through, if they've got a mortgage statement, before you get into the contracting period, I would have hoped that you would already have asked them for a mortgage statement so you can get all of this information that you need from a mortgage statement. A lot of times you can even get them to fax you or email you that mortgage statement before you even show up to the contract, so you know what you're talking about ahead of time. And I do encourage asking for that. It's all in how you ask. You talk about our negotiation series. It's all about how you ask. If you ask with confidence and that this is just a normal piece of business, they usually provide that information pretty pain-free. Down here, we've got the pro rata next monthly payment. Now, I'm not going to require you to make any more payments. Once we close, we're done. Now, technically in mortgages, it's a little bit different than how a rental works. A rental, you're paying at the beginning of the month for that next month. But in a mortgage, you're actually paying at the beginning of the month for time that you lived in it that last month. So really, once we close on the property, that next payment has responsibility of yours tied to it. But I'm not trying to dig in your pockets any on this. I'm just going to keep paying that moving forward. Guys, this is a good negotiation point too, because if you're in a situation, and watch my give and take part of the negotiation series, how you should always take whenever you give, this can be one of those things that you need them to give you back if they're asking for a concession. If they are asking for too many concessions, go ahead and include that they need to pay that next monthly payment. Even if not, it's not necessarily a bad idea to start off with the idea that they should be paying that next monthly payment, because at the end of the day, if they do that, that's more money in your pocket, and that's a good day for you. This next section is the wraparound terms. We're not actually doing a wraparound on this. We're doing subject to, so I'm just going to mark through this. Now, closing costs. Closing costs are one of those areas that's another great negotiation point, right? Because I'm going to usually put in here 50% on both sides. That I'm going to pay 50% of the closing costs on the acquisition, and they're going to pay 50% on the closing costs and acquisitions. I'm ready to pay the full closing costs on all these. I don't care about paying closing costs, but by doing that, what that gives them the opportunity to do is gives them an opportunity to raise their flag and say, actually, no, I don't like that part of it, and make you concede on something. Because people need to feel like they've won. And in the negotiation series, again, we talk about negotiating and concessions and reciprocity, and the art that goes behind the give and take of it all. So we're going to go ahead and give them a bone here to let them feel like they've won. I'm going to put 50-50. They're going to say, I don't like that. I'm going to say, all right, I'll tell you what, I'll mark this through and I'll pay all of the closing costs for you. This is also going to be where you put your arrearages. If there are arrearages in this deal, you want to put that under buyer, and you want to put dollar amount, whatever the arrearages are, and then you can put like plus 50% of normal closing costs or plus 100% of normal closing costs. The point of this contract is just so that things are in writing. But by putting the by putting the arrearages in your closing costs, it makes it to where you are able to put that on the line of the closing statement in your HUD that allows you to make that money tax deductible from your business. So rather than putting it as a purchase cost and having that on that front page of the TREC, we're going to put it as a closing cost, and that makes it a tax deduction for us as well. But please approach your tax man, approach your attorney. This is what my tax man and my attorney have recommended that we do, so that's what we're doing. Again, we're pointing out here that the seller, I'm not asking you to give us a title policy on this. That's not going to be part of the requirement of closing here. And we're going to do a 1-year prepaid insurance policy on this. Now, you've currently got an insurance policy in place that I may add myself onto for a short period of time if there's a period between when I close on the property and when my buyer comes in to close on the property. But again, we're going to assume that we're waiting for a buyer to come in and close on this property, right? So what's going to happen, though, is most likely I'm not going to close on this property till I have a buyer in place, and I'm going to require that buyer to bring a 1-year prepaid insurance policy. It just makes things cleaner, gets it all ready for everybody to use. The consent of note holder, again, we're just pointing out the fact that we're not asking for permission from Big Bank A to do this. The tax and insurance escrow. Now, part of your monthly payment is escrow. Part of your monthly payment, you're paying your principal and your interest, but you're also paying your taxes and insurance in that monthly payment. And that payment, the tax and insurance side, is going into an escrow account, which is basically a savings account that says that at the end of the year, whatever they need to charge to go for the next year of insurance and the next year of taxes will be paid for out of that account. I'm not going to refund you that account because technically you're responsible for that amount of time that you've been in the house anyway. So if I was to refund it to you, you would just be writing a check right back to me at closing for that same amount. So we're just going to leave the escrow account in place as it is. And so I'm checking off this mark right here that says we are not reimbursing the amount in the transferred account. And then the financial information here, we're going to encourage you several times in this. I mean, you have the right to see the financial information of your buyer. So if you want to see any of that financial information, you just need to let us know in writing so that we can get that. I'll tell you, none of my other sellers look for this. They're just happy to get it going with, but you're totally welcome to it. And if you want to see the information of the buyer that I'm putting into this property, just let me know because it is your right to see that kind of stuff. So I will clue you in. I'm going to be doing a full inspection of their finances anyway. You know, part of my requirements when I sell a property is I send them through Texas Pride Lending, which is an RMLO service, and I get their tax returns and their income and their credit scores and all that kind of stuff. So I'm already vetting and doing all that kind of stuff. But if you want to see it, you let me know. Now what I've done here is a very, I'm letting them know that they have the right to see the financial information from their buyer. We are their buyer, okay? They do have the right to look at that. I don't really want to give them my financial information. I don't want them to know how much money I have in any one of my asset holding companies. So what I do is I start talking about the fact that I'm going to do that on my buyer, and I give them the right to look at that. And so it kind of diverts the attention over to that side of things, but that's where we approach that side. So we're going to initial there and then sign and date down here at the bottom.
This is Steve. Steve is a successful real estate investor. Steve is wearing glasses, so therefore you know he's a successful real estate investor. You go, Steve. Go, Steve, go. Go get those dollars. You see that blue dot? That's Steve. Just looking at houses left and right. Look at him go. Get the Driving for Dollars app today. All without leaving your car.